All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of ZenChats. Today, I'm thrilled to be here with the wonderful Amber Vittoria. I'm going to call her the most colorful artist I've ever had the pleasure of appreciating her work and seeing it everywhere, and now the chance to chat with. So, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
I'm excited as well. We had this planned, I think, a month ago, and then I think we were just chatting before we started. You got COVID then, and then we had to delay it, and I'm
Yeah.
just glad that we made it happen now.
Yes, me too.
Although the market is in a crazy cycle, we were chatting as well.
The
The
market
Azuki
has
drama is
COVID.
unfolding.
Yeah.
The market has COVID. I love that.
It's
I mean, I
struggling,
don't love
trying to
that,
get it
but
out.
yeah,
That's what it feels like.
it's just one thing after the other. But enough about that. I'd love to know more about you and specifically like how did you get started as an artist, and then we'll get into how you got started as an NFT artist. But what was your sort of like origin story as an artist? Were you creating as a child, or how did that begin?
Yeah, so I had always loved drawing and coloring ever since I was a kid. And I was really lucky that my parents took notice of that and they encouraged it. They're like, take all the art classes that you can and, just lean into your creativity. So because of that, as I grew older and I went from elementary school to middle school and then eventually high school, that's when I decided I was like, I think I want to pursue art full time. Obviously, as a teenager, and that made it really tough for me to figure out. Sorry, my buzzer is ringing. They'll
It's
stop
all right.
ringing in a second. It took me a while to figure out what type of art I wanted to do. Obviously, as a teen, I wasn't too sure. Back then, I think I was like on Photoshop version 3, like CS3 or 2. So I knew I wanted to do something that allowed me to be creative, but not kind of like put myself into a narrow path. So back then, graphic design really fit that bill. I could play with photography and painting and drawing and put those all together to tell a story. So when it came time to apply to college, I went to Boston University's College of Fine Arts. It really allowed me to study design and learn typography and how to craft a piece and to tell a story visually. But it gave me that freedom to kind of put off what type of artist I wanted to become. After I graduated, I moved back home to north of New York City. I started working full time as a designer and then freelancing nights and weekends, trying to find design and illustration work on Craigslist. Pre social media, I would cut out, different brand names for magazines as well and cold email them. And then eventually, as Facebook and Instagram became more popular, I would save different brands down to my Instagram save tab and then also cold outreach. So I worked full time at a few jobs. The first was Victoria's Secret. The second was VaynerMedia, and then the third was Avon, all as a designer, art director level. And then again, when I would come home nights and weekends, I'd freelance on that illustration. That was about 6 years total. And at the end of that 6 years, I was like, it was getting really tough to have a life. I'd go to work, come home and work, and I was like, this isn't
Hmm.
healthy. So that's when I decided I'm going to go full time freelance. And that was in late 2017. So it's been almost 5 years now. And I've been really fortunate to be able to work with different brands and editorial publications on making artwork that not only resonates with me but with others. So it's been pretty exciting.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
so 2017, you start full time freelance.
Yeah.
When do NFTs enter the fray? Were you back then involved, or is it more recent?
So I started investing in crypto around 2017. I bought, I think like Bitcoin was like 2,500, and then ETH, I don't even know what ETH was,
The good old
to be
days.
honest. Yeah, I don't know what
Yeah.
ETH was. I'll have to check. But then it crashed, and so I was like,
Hmm.
well, whatever. It's like one of those things like I'm not gonna touch that until I'm retired anyway. So
Yeah.
fingers crossed it comes back. But I learned about CryptoKitties probably in 2018, 2019, I want to say.
Hmm.
And I didn't know they were called NFTs. I reached out to them being like, oh, can you sell things other than cats, like
Mm.
on the blockchain? And they're like, yeah, but like we're looking for artists to draw cats. And I was like, okay. So I kind of like let that slide. And I remember thinking like future me is going to really love that, but I didn't really
Hmm.
give it too much thought. I thought maybe like when I was in my like 40s or something, selling and exchanging artwork on a blockchain would be a thing. didn't think it'd be a few years later. So my formal introduction into NFTs was February 2021, when my husband Dave approached me about CryptoPunks. He was like, "Hey, a few of my friends, they've bought these. Like, what do you think?" I love them because they were very nostalgic aesthetically to me. And I was like, "Yeah, let's buy a bunch of them." And he was like, "They are the price of a vehicle." So I was like, I remember being like, "That's ridiculously stupid." And I was like, "Let
Yep.
me do some research." And then like a few days went by, and I was like, "You know what? I think this is a good bet. Worst case scenario, it's the most expensive artwork we will ever
Mhm.
own in our lives, and I will be sad for a long time, and like have to cut back on all of my other spending." So we took some of our money that we were saving to buy a car, and we put it towards that instead. We still don't have a car. Things have kind of opened back up in New York City, so don't really need one to avoid the plague anymore. So it was definitely a better bet than a vehicle. So we bought one. That's the one that I now use as my profile picture. And shortly thereafter, I started to sell some of my artworks as NFTs. Definitely helped me float through March of last year. My freelance was a lot slower. I feel like most artists throughout the pandemic, freelancing was kind of tough because brands are starting to cut back and
Mhm.
figure out what type of marketing they want to do and not trying to spend too much. So that affected a lot of our income. So I was really fortunate to sell a few pieces of my art as NFTs. But the problem that I ran into was that a lot of people didn't feel comfortable giving me their mailing address for physical
Mm.
pieces. So I was like, okay, that's kind of tough. I get it. Like, I don't, if you're anonymous, you shouldn't
Yeah.
give a complete stranger your home mailing address. I understand that. So, I remember, I think I tweeted it out. I'd have to find it. And I was like, hey, I'm going to pause on NFTs. I don't know if I'm a right fit. And then I started lurking, and I
Mhm.
tried to follow artists that were really successful in this space. And I noticed that majority of the works that they were selling, even if they did make physical art, it was digital. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Mm.
I do a lot of digital work for my clients. It makes it a lot easier if they're trying to pick apart a painting or a drawing and put it into different aspects of their design, or if they're trying to blow it up for out of home or shrink it down for social media. So I was like, I wonder if I can make digital work that's personal instead of, for a client, and then sell my digital artworks like I would paintings. So it took me a few months. And then August of 2021, that's really when I started to sell my digital artwork as NFTs. And then that did really well. And as I started to slowly establish myself in this space, I was able to kind of pivot and start to bring my paintings back into it in different ways. So it's been life changing. I like all of my artist friends that are like, oh, such a barrier, wallets, ETH, money. Like I get it. I was like, it definitely is a learning curve. But if you're a freelancer and you could dedicate the time to like educating yourself on it, like it'll definitely be worth it for you long term. Just similarly to like learning Facebook and learning Instagram, like it's gonna benefit you long term. So you may
Mhm.
as well be earlier rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the learning curve is so steep and treacherous that it just sort of puts people off
Yeah.
even wanting to attempt or even try it, let alone when they start and then they're like, "All right, that's too hard."
I was gonna say, I think that was me in March. I was like, wow, this is a lot. Let me pause. And I think that's okay
Yeah.
too. Like, as long as you are invested in learning, you don't have to fully be active
Mhm.
until you feel solid enough. But yeah, I think a lot of people like they hear ETH and crypto and multiple wallets and they're like, what? And then
Yeah.
they see all these news articles about like people are scammed with NFTs. And I was like, people are also scammed on the phone and via
Yep.
email and via snail mail. Like,
Snail mail, yeah.
yeah, people are gonna scam. It's just a new way for people to do that. So I was like, you just have to learn a new vernacular to avoid those,
Mhm.
because this is such a new space that's really hard. It's harder to navigate, but in the next 5, 10 years, people will know what to avoid. Similarly to when you get all those spam emails.
Yeah. It's like a double-edged sword, right? Like
Yeah.
it's because it's so difficult and there's a barrier, the opportunities are so tremendous, and that's the beauty of being early. Beauty and the bane of
Yeah,
being early. Yeah.
exactly.
I found it interesting how you said that a lot of your artist friends are like talking about how it's difficult to set up a wallet and all that kind of stuff. Uh, do you have artist friends who are, or artists that you know who are very against the idea of NFTs? Is it still very stigmatized?
Yeah, I think that, and I always try to pinpoint this sticking point, because when I first started sharing that I was selling a few NFTs, the other reason why I paused in March was because I was getting like so much hate, like, "Oh my God,
Mm,
you're ruining the planet. How could you? I'm unfollowing you." And at that time, I was like, well, my Instagram following does float me with print sales, so I'm not trying to
Mm.
piss them off. So there are a few artists that I mean, I've kind of since, I think, separated from, because they're like, I don't care about your NFT stuff, like live your life, and then they kind of just go away. But a lot of them read an article, I believe, I'd have to double check my mental facts, but I believe there was an article written by a designer that kind of broke down the energy usage of buying and selling an NFT, and took some data that they found online to, create this like interactive landing page talking about how horrifically sucking of energy NFTs
Mm.
were. And even though, like, yes, NFTs require energy, I do think that article, a lot of my designer friends kind of joked, like, just because you could design the Venn diagram doesn't mean that you're qualified to interpret it. So I feel like that kind of had that vibe, but
Mm.
I feel like there's so much information coming at us all the time that, like, you read that and you're like, this looks researched enough, but we forget to question who did the research.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of where this rift amongst at least graphic designers and some artists came with the NFTs. With that said, flash forward a year, there are several of them that were very hesitant because of those articles, and are now learning that a lot of, yes, of course, the energy is something that, still needs to become more sustainable, as is everything that we do as human beings. But people are realizing that a lot of it's mined on, sustainable solar energy, and that the goal is to make it as sustainable as possible, because then it
Mm-hmm.
should be easier to operate on. So I think a lot of artists, as they've taken the time to educate themselves, have realized that maybe their initial reaction wasn't as researched as they thought.
Well, that's good to hear. Something, excuse me, something one of my friends always says is that there's no other industry where you can expect like the carbon footprint to be reduced by 99% at some point when ETH 2.0 comes in. It's like, yes, it's getting delayed and kicked down, but like that reduction it's coming, and it's enormous, and it's just like no
And I
other
don't
industry has
think,
that.
I was gonna say, I was like, we don't scrutinize any other industry that like, we don't scrutinize the fashion industry for it.
Hmm.
There's so many brands that are like, we are, eco-friendly, and then you like look into the materials of the actual garments, and you're like, that's still 90%
Yeah.
plastic, or like our food industry has microplastics in it. And like, yeah,
Hmm.
you have people that like talk about it, but not as like, you know,
Right. Yeah. It's not.
passionately, I feel like, as they have with
Yeah.
NFTs.
NFTs are just easy to attack and target, I think, especially because you do have the scams and the rug pulls and the crappy JPEG selling for millions and all
I
that kind of
also,
stuff.
yeah, and I also think too, because it's new, like human nature is to be a bit kind of like questioning of something
Hmm.
that's new, because it's like, is this safe? Is this going to hurt me? And I feel like that's natural. So I think that's also why too, like NFTs are very new, so it kind of is natural for people to question it. Whereas things that have been happening for so long, people are like, oh well, that's the way it's
Hmm.
been, and not
Yeah.
not that that's necessarily a good thing, but I do see that kind of seep into it. But I try to spread the knowledge that NFTs really, like, it's going to be the future. Our homes are going to be tethered to an NFT. Our
Hmm.
wills, like, it's just going to make life so much easier for so many more people, and it already has. And it's just selling, artwork and profile pictures. Like, I can't wait to see
Hmm.
what that's going to be when, everything is tethered to the blockchain. So. That's how I kind of explain it to people, and they're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully." I think in our lifetime for sure, given how fast everything is, but
Yeah.
hopefully in our
Give
lifetime.
it 5-10 years, and I think a lot of that's going to be. But then, like the wills and the real estate, that might take a bit longer, and medical records, understandably, is going to take a
Exactly.
lot longer. But yeah, we're already starting to see, I think, a shift in some industries, and yeah, it's just the beginning. It truly is.
Yeah, I'm excited
Um,
for it.
yeah, it's very, very exciting. Let's get back to you and your art though, because we sort of veered off there a bit.
So I go on tangents, so I'm sorry.
So do I. So do I. Which is great. But behind you now, so for the people who are listening to the podcast,
Yeah.
you won't be able to see, but on the YouTube and the video, there's two wonderful pieces of art. They're very colorful, and I think that's again a theme that runs through. I guess I should double check. Those are your artworks, right?
Yes, they are.
I
They are
didn't want to
mine.
go on
There.
because I mean it has the right colors and everything, but you never know.
Yeah,
But yes,
true.
so
That's true.
color is a theme clearly. Where did that come from, and where do you get your inspiration from for your art, because you have a very distinct style, I feel.
Thank you. So earlier on in my art career, my work was definitely more figurative, but it was also very colorful. Um, the themes behind all my work is to, celebrate womanhood and the nuances of what it's like to have a lived experience as a woman. And when I was younger, I struggled to see myself in how women were depicted in media and in fine art. Not only just how women were drawn and represented in those spaces, but also the women that were making the art and that were in the museums. There weren't too many. So I started making work that I could see myself in. And that started off figurative. And as I grew as an artist and as a person, those became a bit more abstracted. But the one tethering tie amongst all of my work is the color palettes that I use. I would say 99% of my people view my artwork on a really small screen. So I want to use color palettes that are not only visually engaging and kind of encourage people to stop and pause with the artwork, but also palettes that are a bit nostalgic and comforting. Because I feel like not all of my work is always positive. I feel like my work also reflects the difficulties of what it's like to be a woman. But I try to do it in a way that allows people that may not know that or want to learn more about it to feel comfortable and and exploring what that discomfort might be like. So I try to use color not only as a storyteller and an emotional play, but also as a way for the viewer to feel comfortable with what I'm trying to say with the work.
I love that. I think there certainly is like a comfort, like you said, for excuse me, sorry, I'm just dying here.
Okay,
While
that
I'm
was
trying to talk
literally me
about
like two
comfort,
weeks ago.
yeah, it's I've been trying to hold it in, but sometimes you can't.
You
We can
gotta,
edit
yeah.
it
No
out.
worries.
So what would you say is the most difficult part of the whole artistic process for you?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. That is a fantastic question. I would say off the top of my head is artist as content creator. I'm
Mm,
so thankful that, social media has circumvented the traditional avenues for artists to support themselves, especially for women and especially for artists that are minorities, that we're able to leverage social media to work for ourselves and to support ourselves. But with that, being a content creator is tough to, rely on the likes economy of
mm,
TikTok and of Instagram to, get your work out there. Can be kind of tiring, sharing your process, worrying about people ripping off your process, but then also knowing that that's how you get your work
mm-hmm,
in front of other people. That's definitely something that I'm constantly working through because as I finally become okay with it, the algorithm changes. So that's the toughest part, but it's a good problem to have. I'd
mm,
much rather that issue than having to find an agent that finds me all the work or a gallerist to put my work into galleries. Like I'd much rather, have to make a reel of my artwork than that. So even though it is difficult, it's something that I would prefer to what came before it. But I hope that with NFTs and Web3 that we can even shift away from that. There are definitely gatekeepers in social media now, and NFTs are kind of circumventing those
mm,
gatekeepers. So you don't need to have a massive following to have your artwork sell, which is incredible to see. There's some people
mm-hmm.
that weren't artists professionally because they couldn't, support themselves in their art until this space. So I'm excited for how this space will continually kind of push back against what Web 2 has done and further that what life has been like before that for artists.
Yeah, I think it's something that I hear a lot is a similar answer where it's the hardest part is not necessarily the art creation part; it's the the other parts of selling it,
Marketing. Yeah.
marketing. Because honestly, it's the toughest thing for everyone in this, anyone in any NFT space. It's like it's no longer. I'm not sure. Excuse me. I'm not sure it ever was good enough to just build a good product. Maybe for a while it was like if you build it, they will come. But now it's like if you build it and then show it to people and market it well and get
Maybe
people
you'll get
hyped,
a few people.
maybe
Yeah.
then they'll come. Which kind of sucks,
Exactly.
but that's I guess the world we live in, right? Marketing has been around since forever. What advice would you give to say an aspiring artist, someone I guess specifically an aspiring NFT artist, someone who perhaps has had a bit of success in selling their traditional art? Maybe they're young, maybe they've been selling prints for decades, but they want to get into the NFT space. And I mean, marketing obviously is a huge part and understanding the social media game. But what would your advice be for someone wanting to enter this space?
I think for folks that don't have too much of a knowledge of crypto and of NFTs at all or blockchain technology at all, I would say first evaluate how you learn best. Usually I learn by doing. So I just was like, well, we're going to buy some ETH. Well, I bought some ETH
Buy a
years ago.
punk.
And then, yeah, yeah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
have you get you a partner that convinces you to buy a punk. No, I'm kidding. But I was like, buy some ETH, set up a wallet, and then mint an NFT, and or if you can afford to collect an NFT,
Mhm.
go through that process. If learning by observing is better, there are so many podcasts, such as this one, where you could kind of listen and learn and figure out the stories and paths of others in this space and kind of piece together what path makes the most sense for you. And then beyond that, once you're comfortable enough, kind of dive in and start figuring out like buying and selling and the minting and asking questions. I always like to, even though my DMs are closed on Twitter because I get like a billion spam messages, my email is
Yeah.
super easy to find on my website. And that's a lot easy to filter out spam versus not. So like if anyone that's listening, that's an artist that's like, oh, I have a question, like feel free to email me or Instagram DM me. That has a better spam filter than Twitter does. So asking questions is another thing that I like to do because I asked so many other people questions as I was setting up, and without that help, I don't think I would be where I am in this space. So I like to
Yeah.
encourage questioning.
I love that. I think that's the best way to learn is asking questions. And the thing about I think 99% of people in the space is everyone is so happy to help answer questions and
Yeah.
because it was not that long ago that we were on the other side of the equation that, figuring out how do we set up a MetaMask wallet or how do you mint and what does minting even mean? I think
Yeah.
I've had that question asked like 100 times. What does it mean to mint? And like now it's like if you've been in the space for a while, it's just like common, vernacular. But
hmm
other people are like, what is this term?
Or even like the term one of one artist. When I joke about
Yeah.
this like evergreen because I'm a nerd, but like when I first entered this space, I was like one of one artist, like in the printmaking terms, a one of one is a mono print or like a print that you only make an edition of one of. And then a painting is a painting. You
Mm,
don't number it, like these are
yeah.
not numbered. The ones behind me,
Right.
they're just paintings. So when people are like, are you a one of one artist? I'm like, I've made mono prints, and they're like, what? And I'm like, what? And they're like, what? So it took me a little bit of time to be like, oh, an artist that doesn't have like, a 10,000 piece like
Mhm.
project that I'm dedicated. Okay, I get it. So I think with time though, that terminology would change. But it took me asking a lot of people to be like, am I a one of one artist? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. So
I mean, it's
um,
confusing. I mean, even
yeah,
because
for sure.
you have one-on-one artists, but then, a lot of the time they will sell editions and maybe they sell 50 or
Yeah,
100 or in
that's
some cases
me.
1,000 and then an open edition. So it's just like, well, where do you draw that distinction? Yeah.
I think, yes, I think I tell like a lot of my friends that are like interested in NFTs, they're all like, taking their time to learn. I was like, yeah, one of one artist just means an artist that doesn't have like a 10K project. And like,
Yeah.
okay. I was like, you could just
That
say artist too. That's
yeah,
fine.
basically it.
Yeah.
What's your creative process like? Like, or how do you spend your time, any given week in terms of creating and marketing or other stuff, community building? Yeah.
Yeah, I before NFTs is a little more structured. I when I worked at VaynerMedia as an art director, and there we use Google Calendars for everything. So like if you needed to take a lunch break or a personal call or do a photo shoot for a client, that was all on your calendar. So when I started freelancing, I very much adopted that. I use Google Calendar often. My
Mm.
whole life is on it. Some things like going to the gym or, and I mean, with the pandemic, exercising or going for a walk, like all that's in my calendar. So usually I try to block off in the mornings, doing things like emails and or phone calls. I try to paint early afternoon and then late afternoon. If I have like longer calls or things that are more in depth, I try to do that then. With NFTs though, that kind of like shook it up a bit. So I'm still trying to figure it out, but it's kind of fun to live a little bit more loose with my calendar. So outside of client work, that stays pretty rigid. When it comes to social media, I check it when I can. I try to use it as a treat, even though I very much market and support myself on it. I try to keep that viewing of Twitter and of Instagram as something that's like looking forward to connecting with people, especially in the last 2 years, not being able to connect with people as much in person. And then same thing with Discord. Discord, I'm still very much new at. And I feel like it's similar to Photoshop, where it's like you could be so good at one element of it, and then like the rest of it, you'll
Mhm.
never know because it doesn't apply to you. I feel like that's my goal with Discord. I'm not even good at one little element, but I love being able to chat with people on Discord because it feels a lot more personal than like Instagram or Twitter DMs or
Hmm.
just tweets in general. So same thing with Discord. I try to keep that as a treat where I'm like checking in with people that I've befriended. But yeah, when it comes to marketing, I'm not as strict as I used to be. Like I used to do outreach to brands like a few
Mm,
times a week. I still do that, but when it comes to NFT marketing, it's kind of nice that it doesn't feel like marketing. It's just kind of like,
yeah.
this is my art and I've met people that have collected it and everyone's cool. And now that more, the pandemic hopefully is getting better, I can meet them in person. So I try to keep that more fun and more loose. So I think as time goes on, it'll find its way into my structure. But for now it's touch and go.
I always tell people that like one of the important things if you're trying to be an artist or sell like a 10K collection or whatever, do anything in the space is like networking, right? You got to meet people and know and like. But networking has this negative connotation where people think, oh, you wear a suit and you go to a conference and it's stuffy and boring.
Like
But
start
in
off
the
like
NF
a cold chat with someone and no.
exactly. But in NFTs and Web3, it's just like you're just memeing on Twitter and Discord
It's
and
great.
laughing, and it's great. Doesn't feel like
And then it
I'm
makes
so sorry.
meeting no, it's okay. And it makes meeting in person so much easier too. Like the few design like conferences that I would go to before NFTs, like I'm not very good in large crowds. Like I can't really just go up to a complete stranger and be like,
Mm,
"Hello, friends." Horrible
yeah.
at it. My husband's very good at it, and I watch and I learn, and then I will go up to someone and like after 3 words, I'm like, I have nothing else to say. But within this space, like I've gone to NFT NYC in November and then Basel, and I've done a few things, and I'm looking forward to VCon. Like the few times that I've gone to different in-person events, it doesn't feel like that at all, which is really nice. I just feel like I think it's the group of people contributes to it. The fact that we're all super early to something that so many
Hmm.
people are hesitant to join is another, but it feels really lovely that it doesn't feel like networking. It just
Yeah.
kind of feels like you're like hanging out with people with common interests. So it's been really cool.
I think it's in part because like so many of us, it's we connect over this common thing where not very few other people in our lives understand or can relate. And
Yeah,
I sort
so
of
true.
draw parallels to like the early, excuse me, early Comic Con, where it was like all these nerds and geeks came together, and for the first time they could be themselves and talk about the
Yes.
superheroes and the whatever and cosplay and have fun, where they just got picked on and I'll include myself because I grew up in the '90s as a nerd, and it was difficult to find your people. But then when you do, it was like big sigh of relief. It's like this is
Yep.
great. This feels comfortable, and I think that's what, honestly, that's what like crypto Twitter and Discord and NFT
That's
events
such a
I
good
think are like.
comparison.
Yeah.
That's
Are you going to
awesome.
NFT NYC this year or next month? I guess it is.
I am, yeah. So I live in NYC,
Of
so
course you
I'm
do.
kind of
Yeah.
oh God, when it was in November, and I was like, the devs need to change this to summer. Like, what? Who came up with November, especially during the
Yeah.
pandemic? Like, notoriously, I mean, New York's also rates aren't great right
Hmm.
now, but this is before Omicron. But I was like, guys, we're all gonna get sick. I'm freezing outside, so I'm
Yeah.
glad that it's in June. So
June. Yeah.
hopefully it stays in June. Going
Mm.
forward. So yeah, I'll be at NFT NYC. Are you gonna be there?
I am. I am. It'll be my first time. I was planning to go last year, but COVID travel restrictions couldn't go. But yeah, very excited. It's again going to be. I haven't actually
Yay!
been to any NFT conference or anything like that, so it's going to be great to just meet
So
everyone. It's like I'm just going to be
fun.
meeting people all the
Especially all
time.
the things like even NFT NYC last year. I didn't go to the actual conference because I was like,
Mm,
that's COVID.
yeah,
But I went to and met people outside of it and it was still really fun. So even like for folks that live in New York, they're like, I don't have a conference ticket, like you don't
yeah.
need one. Just be on Twitter and like go to the other things. It's
That's what I
really
hear.
cool.
I think everyone says don't get a conference ticket. It's expensive and there's too many speakers. And I
I'm one of the speakers and I was like, oh my God, I'm a speaker. And then it was like a laundry list of 1,000 people and I was like, oh, okay.
exactly. The exact same thing happened with me. I applied to be a speaker and I was like, well, part of it honestly was like just to get the free ticket. But also because I was like,
Same.
hey, it would be cool. And then they were like, they accepted me. I was like, yeah. And then I was like, there's 1,000 people. And then now I'm like, can I get out of it? Do I have to give a speech?
I
Can I just
think
go to the other stuff?
I think I'm gonna be on a. I haven't heard from them. I don't know if you have. I'm
I have not.
assuming I'm gonna be on a panel. I'm praying that I'm gonna be on a panel because like
Panel
that's
will
the
be good.
easy. Yeah, because you
Yeah.
can meet people. I think that's easier. So I'm hoping that's their thing. Is like they're gonna do a bunch of panels. Hence, they
Mm,
need so many speakers for that. But yeah, we'll
fingers
see.
crossed.
We'll see.
um, yeah, it's gonna be fun, I guess, no matter what.
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
Yeah. You have a book coming out next year, or you're working on a book.
I do. I
I
forget
saw that on
about
your
it because I
website. Yeah.
submitted it. Yeah. So, a life goal of mine was to have a book of my work. I never really knew what that would look like. But when I was a kid and like first, second grade, parents would volunteer to come in and we would like write pre-templated books that then we would draw on after the fact. And I remember being like, when I get older, I want to write a book. So I'm excited that that's coming true. 6-year-old me would be pretty proud. But yeah, so it's a book of my artwork and my poetry. It's with Andrews McNeil, and the scheduled pub date is early January of 2023. But with everything kind of being delayed in terms of like shipping and fulfillment, that might get pushed. But right now it's in
It's
6 months,
exciting.
which is kind of
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Goal of mine is also to write a book one day, but I'm a little further off. It's still in
I
the
say
idea
like if
phase.
you ever like have a pitch idea or like if you have an idea and need help putting a pitch together, I could send it to once it's together, I could send it to my agent, and then if it's not a fit, because each agent kind of like has their own like
Yeah.
so if it's not in her niche, you could find someone else. So yeah, let me
I
know.
may take you up on that. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Thank you.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, that's the easy part, right? Then writing it or putting it together, that's the tricky
Yeah,
part.
that was the I
Yeah.
remember like I think that like I didn't sell any NFTs of my work from like October to January or November to January, and I was like, I gotta get this book done. So luckily no one really noticed.
Yeah.
So that was when I was like, hey y'all, if you don't see me on the internet, I'm just dying inside trying to get all
Yeah.
this artwork out of me and scanned. But it was a fun process to be able to work on something collective like that.
Yeah, definitely. Um, all right, couple more questions. If
Yeah.
if you get one dream, I like to ask this one. If you get one dream partnership with any project or brand or person, who would that be? Who would you like to work with?
Wow, that's a great question. But I'll answer the first off the top of my head. I've done a few artwork pieces with Gucci in the past for like some social media ad campaigns years ago. They're very much in the NFT space, and I feel like Gucci's always been a big supporter of
Mm,
artists. They work with such a diverse set of artists and styles of artwork. I would love to do an NFT Web3 related collaboration with them. That would be awesome.
excuse me. Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're very much in the Web3. They have the Grail with 10K TF, and I'm just gonna. I got I don't know if yeah, you can see it. So I've got this. It looks very much like the Gucci one. For Zen Academy, we chose the crystal ball emoji, and then just someone in the community DM'd me and was like, I work with a 3D printer. I got these made. Would you like me to send you?" I was like, yes. So now I can't look at it's on my windowsill. Look at my windowsill without thinking of now Gucci because they came out with
That's
their thing. But it's so
awesome.
cool. It's just it's a constant reminder of how amazing this entire space is. People are just so wonderful, and yeah,
That's beautiful. Oh my God.
it's heavy too. It was really heavy.
It's like legit. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
All right. Is there anything that you are like any other project that you're especially excited about out there that is up and coming or been released, or any new artists that you're really excited about that you want to maybe shout out?
Yeah, artist wise, two that come to mind. I feel like lettering within this space is still something that has a big growth opportunity. My friend Danielle Evans does really beautiful, like sculptural lettering out of physical objects. She just did this really beautiful series that it's called Unhappy's Mother's Day, and it's for folks that have really raised themselves and may not have had a parental figure. So that it's really, really, really beautiful. I think that I'm very fortunate to have had two incredible parents, but I know like my mom in specific, like I know that collection would resonate with her, so I got her one of those. And then another lettering artist is Jackson Alves. His work is really incredible. I've got a few pieces from him. And they're really colorful. And I'd say the main reason why I got into NFTs is because it's like I could collect art and I won't piss Dave off by like taking up all of our apartment. Yeah, most of the NFTs I buy come with physicals, so I haven't really solved that problem. But so I've got a physical one from him coming in the mail too. So those are two. I hope to see more like folks that do calligraphy and or lettering enter the space because I think that that could be really nice. I know Jessica Hish, she's pretty famous in terms of the work that she's done outside of NFTs. So she's definitely been like in the space, and like I think she helped my BFF with the illustration of the bracelets themselves. So
Yeah.
excited for her to come out with a collection too. And then outside of that, project wise, Women in Weapons is one that I really love. I like the metaphor behind it, kind of like the armor that women wear into the world. It's very much in line with the work that I make. I've also been lucky enough to befriend Sarah, who's the artist behind Women in Weapons. And I know they're working on a season 2. And what she's shared so far looks really incredible. Like, I personally see like that could be the next, like, I don't like saying the next blank, but here we go.
Yeah.
Like the next like Marvel or DC. I feel like representation of like superheroes, and like, strong women. It's not very prevalent, especially in, like illustrated and or comic book space. So I'm excited that they might hopefully be that for a lot of young girls that grow into women. So yeah, pretty excited
Amazing.
about that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Women and Weapons too, and we'll have links to all of that in the description below. So if anyone's wanting to check them
Yes.
out, then yeah. I had one more question that just popped up, totally randomly. But do you have a favorite museum in the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oh God, that's like picking a favorite color. I'll do the same thing. Off the top of my head, I would say the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, because I went to college in Boston, and that's where I would go to be inspired. They have this whole wing that's not it's not super new anymore, but it was like new when I was in college. In my mind, I think I went to college yesterday, but really it's been like a decade. It has like American art from like, Americas before as Americas all the way to modern art. And I really love that wing. And whenever I do go back and visit there now as an adult, it just kind of reminds me of myself when I didn't really know what I was doing and just like wanted to be an artist. So I think for that nostalgic reason, that's my favorite museum.
I love it. I love it. We just got back from a 3-week trip around Europe, and we went to like 8 museums, and it's amazing. Like, it was the first time I was like traveling and going to museums since getting into NFTs, and like prior to
Yes.
NFTs, I was like kind of interested in art, but like not anywhere near the level now. Whereas like now I've just gone deep down the rabbit hole, and it's just so much fun
That's
discovering
awesome.
art and art history and just all of it. It's amazing. So yeah.
I feel like learning art history this way, like through NFTs, is far more exciting than like how I learned it at an 8 a.m. lecture class my freshman year, sophomore year of college. That
Yeah.
was not as fun. Yeah, so I feel like that's the other thing too. So many people that like liked art, but they were like, I've got life. I got lives
Mm,
because I'm not an
mm,
artist. Have been so interested and invested in art. So it's like really lovely to
yeah.
hear that. And I'm like, good, more friends to go to museums with that I don't have to drag with me. So that's nice.
Yeah, no, I'm the one dragging people. My fiance and their mother-in-law,
Yeah.
were no, they were really happy to come, but I think the last museum we went to was like that was
They're
maybe
like,
one museum too many. Yeah,
yeah.
but it was great. No,
That's
all
awesome.
right. Is there anything that you want to chill, promote your own work coming up? Do you have a collection dropping? Anything you're working on right now that you want to shout out?
Oh, thanks. I guess that I mean I don't know when it's coming out, but I'm excited. Worked on a collection of 999 pieces that are one of ones. It was inspired
Wow.
by generative. Yeah, I started in January. I just scanned the last one in yesterday, so now I gotta do the metadata
Hmm.
part. But so I've always been inspired by generative art in the last year. That's my biggest inspiration. I cannot code, and I'm very envious of folks that can create art from code. It's wild. Um, so my attempt at a generative collection that was made by hand was it's called Memories of a Masterpiece. So there are 999 scanned pieces of art where I cut out different color pieces of paper. I can actually pull up on my phone for people that are watching this. So there are 999 scanned pieces of paper, and I arrange them on my scanner. And then once they're scanned in, I remove the paper and then scan a new one. And the idea being I wanted something that was made by hand but could only live digitally. So the idea of a
Mm.
memory of something. So
Oh yeah, that comes out.
so there's going to
I
be
love this so much.
Thanks. So I don't know. So my friends from Curious Addies, Ben and Mai, are helping me with the contract out of the goodness of their heart, and I'll give them some. They'll roll
They
their
did the
eyes, but I'll
contract for Zen Academy out of the
stop. Oh, they're
goodness
the
of their heart.
best. They're so nice. I was like, "Can I pay you?" And they're like,
Yeah,
"No." And I was like, "I mean, I'm gonna find your address and just like send you shit, but
yeah,
okay."
yeah, yeah,
So we're
yeah.
keeping the contract super simple. It's gonna be 721A. I'm not gonna do an
Mhm,
allow list because that's kind of where things get a little
mhm.
murky. And I'm like, it's just me, and then they're helping me. So like, but I'm excited. I'm hoping by mid-July to release them all. But it's been really fun to work on something and kind of like sink my teeth in. I feel like the best part about this space for me as an artist is like I'm afforded the time to like work on something longer than a few days. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to share that with folks.
that's exciting. I'm excited to see
Yeah.
it. Like, I'm a huge fan of generative art and your art, and this just
Thanks.
sounds
This is my
amazing.
attempt at like the non-coding
Yeah.
version
No, I love it.
scanner. Thanks.
It's I mean, it's a lot of work. It's
Yeah, I was
yeah,
pretty tired. I mean, coding I would be a lot of work too, but
yeah,
yes, this is
different.
my interpretation, I
Yeah.
guess, if you will.
Alright, I have one more question. I'll make this the last one.
Yeah.
What, do you have a favorite generative artist or generative art collection? Because there's so much great stuff out there.
I mean, that's another one where I'll just like go off the top of my head. I feel like Art Blocks has been a great way to discover so many generative artists. One of my favorites is I mean she's not generative. Jen Stark, she has a collection. She funny enough, before NFTs, like I saw her work as a mural and I think it's Culver City in Los Angeles. And I didn't know it was her because like it was like, oh that's cool, I have to look them up and then
Mhm.
just forgot about it. And then she sold a piece last year and I was like, that looks familiar. And then I Googled, and then I've since been able to meet her and she's just awesome. So I really love how she took like she cuts all of this stuff out and like creates these like sculptures and like they move and the fact that she was able to translate that into generative
Mm.
collection was really incredible. So that's one of my favorites. Vortex, I believe it's called. And I
Yeah,
have one
Vortex.
full transparency. I'll never sell it, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I have one. So
Yeah, they're
that's
really,
another.
really cool. They're colorful, they're trippy, they're, like, animated, I believe, and you can, like, use your mouse and, like, drag them
Yeah,
around and
I don't know how
yeah.
she did that, but that was really fun. And it's cool because I have a gift goat, so like it was fun to see that she was a gift goat artist too. I'm like,
Nice.
yes. So we get one of those from her too. So I'm excited.
That's
But we,
awesome.
me and my husband, everyone's like, why do you say we? And I was like, because I have to split all these expensive ones with my husband. I'm trying to go in this solo. So yeah, so I'm excited to have two of her pieces now.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Alright, well, this has been wonderful. Honestly, I could chat with you for hours, but we have
Yeah.
to wrap this up, and maybe we do this again sometime in the future because, yeah, this has been so much fun.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Thank you. And
alright.
also thanks for rescheduling when I literally sounded like death. I didn't even have
Absolutely,
a voice. I was gonna do it. I was like, "Can I?"
yeah,
And Dave was like, "You literally have no voice. No one's
yeah.
gonna want to listen to you." And I was like, "Okay." It's like this is such a big
I'm the one.
opportunity.
Excuse me.
No,
Now
you
I'm
sound
the.
great.
Yeah, no, I got the voice. I'm coughing up a lung. Yeah,
That's all of us. I feel like at some point.
I think so. I think so. Thank you. Thank you so much.